We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AVRant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AVRant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. And in Rob's quest to get 3 Switch 2s, I have a little bit of update. First of all, Nintendo emailed me again, and they got my hopes up because I saw the subject line, and it said, I saw it was from Nintendo, and it said good news, and I was like, ooh, maybe I got my invitation. No, they're just good news. You're still in the queue.
Aw.
Thanks
to suck.
Thanks, Nintendo, for that psych out. That was a lot of fun. And they're like, yeah. Don't worry. Yeah, you're still in the queue. Your invitation might not come until after launch day. And also, you're under no obligation to buy if you manage to get one before your invitation arrives. So I'm like, well, that's nice confirmation at least of all the questions I might have had as far as that goes. But I went and visited my local GameStop location in person and asked them, and I'm like, so I don't have a pre-order with GameStop. And I was like, so are you expecting to have any units like just show up on launch day, line up early in the morning type of thing, and have any for sale, or is it going to be pre-orders only? And then, so the guy couldn't say it outright, but he definitely gave the impression of they're going to have a lot of consoles to sell on launch day.
That's good.
Yeah, because he was like, oh yeah, we'll have them there on launch day. And he's like, I was like, so should I line up like midnight or something like that? So first of all, they're like, there's a midnight launch happening, but it's midnight Eastern time. So that's going to be 9 p.m. over here in Pacific time.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys are on the West Coast. So,
yeah, on June the 4th instead of June the 5th, which is the official launch day. So we'll actually get it potentially 3 hours before the official launch day over here because they're doing midnight launch, but across the entire country. So US is doing that too, but I didn't know what Canada's plans were. So he let that slip. That's not being broadcast anywhere, but I guess I'll broadcast it to our oodles and oodles of AVRant listeners. Maybe I'll spoil the whole thing. But yeah, one per customer is the thing. But yeah, 9 p.m. And I was like, so should I be, lining up super early in the morning? He's like, get here 6. So he seemed pretty confident that they have quite the stock that's going to be available on launch day, which I'm crossing. I'm still going to go there early on Wednesday. Happens to be my day off, which is June the 4th. So I can actually go and spend most of my day just lined up outside of a GameStop. That's going to be fun. But yeah,
I don't know. I know you're not that much younger than me, but that feels like I'm too old for that. And that doesn't feel like it.
It's still kind of fun. It's like a throwback. I kind of enjoy it. It really doesn't happen that often.
Would you like a kid? You could get old real fast. I'd give you one.
So that's been my fun adventure.
Yeah, so nothing going on over here. Okay. It's the end of the school year. I think I talked about that a little bit last week. Oh, man, this freaking guy with was he got an edger? I don't know what he's doing. It looks like a weed whacker. I don't know what he's doing, but he's right outside the window.
Uh-huh.
And he keeps stopping and looking around and checking his phone, and then, there he is, just walking by. Hey, what's up, man?
That's on you for having the windows
so
open.
The end of the school year is upon us, and I think it's the last 2 weeks of school right now. So by next week, school will be effectively done for my son who's in high school, which is the one that we are currently having to deal with. My college age kids are done already.
Okay.
And like I said, my son's back from his little trip, and everybody lived.
Yes.
So, but it's just stressful around here. I keep thinking we don't have anything to do. I'm like, I don't have anything on the schedule.
And I mean, you do have kind of a shortage of bedrooms and space where you are right now. So
we do. Yeah. We are overflowing. But luckily, my eldest son, his apartment that he rented because he did not get housing on campus, goes through the end of July. So he's not coming back before that.
Gotcha.
Because then it'd be tight in here, number one. And number two, he'd have somebody going, why are you still why don't you do anything other than look at your computer? Just get out of your room, go meet people, you weirdo.
I see.
So
we're ones.
Yeah,
to
my
talk.
son is. I mean, the apple and the tree are very close. Yeah. So my wife is she does not consider, and we all, I think, do this. So, I know that I don't know everything there is to know about home theater, and because I know how much there is to know about home theater. I know that Rob doesn't know everything there is to know about home theater, even though he definitely retains more knowledge than I do, even though we've been talking to each other about this stuff for 10 years. He still retains, he still knows more than me, or at least has it on hand. And my wife is like that, but if you and I met almost anybody else, like the conversations, I have a hard time dumbing down home theater enough.
Oh, okay.
For like casual conversation.
Sure.
Somebody asked me the other day, how would are TVs really better than each other? Or, what do I look for if I'm looking for on a TV? I'm like, and I keep, in my brain, I'm like, keep walking it back. I'm like, I don't, brightness? I don't know. Backlight? Do I go with backlight? Do I go with, full array local dimming? How far back
Definitely
do I go
not full array local dimming. Nope, that's not the one.
So I keep walking it back, trying to get it dumb enough for them, and I don't mean that in an insult. It's just that I have.
Let's use the word simple.
You and
instead.
I have such a simplify it down. So my wife has this thing where she's like, "Oh well, I'm not. I'm kind of introverted." I'm like, "Have you lost your dang mind?" Like I've never known anybody that says, "Well, I've met people that are really good at meeting people and networking." I'm like, just because you met one person who was better than you does not mean that we are all in the same boat. like we go to business events and parties and stuff, and you leave and meet everybody, and then you come over and get me and say, "Oh, Tom, you will like this one person out of the 30 I just met." Like you are extroverted. Oh no, I'm not. I'm kind of an introvert. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah, I mean, it isn't a binary thing. That's, you can have both tendencies of introverts and extroverts and be on a whole wide spectrum of that thing. Yes.
So my son takes after me a lot more, and my eldest son takes after me a lot more, but he's much more that way. And this generation, and I say that with not this kids don't want to work these days sort of thing, but we all dealt with different challenges as we were growing up. Our grandparents were dealing with world wars and depression and the Great Depression. Our parents were dealing with, I don't know, booming economy,
the
Cold War, that sort of thing.
It's kind of a big deal.
My generation was like, our parents literally did not care where we were, and if we got abducted, the cops just said, "Oh, they ran away," and that was the end of that. Right. It's like runaway epidemic. I don't know if they were running away. They might have been, but some of them weren't.
And I, as a elder millennial, had the whole right as I'm at. Sort of like grade 5, 6, 7 era is like just the massive explosion of home computers, which really did change culture. It truly did. You can demarcate it pretty darn clearly with that.
And so this generation is dealing, at least from what I've seen of my kids and kids around their age, is dealing with a lot of social anxiety and having to know how to interact with other people. They don't have as many opportunities, or they're not forced into it as much. I mean, we had to answer the phone. The phone rang. It could be an important phone call for our parents. We had to answer it. We had to. We had to be able to do that, because if not, something there were negative repercussions for us, but also potentially negative repercussions for our families. So we were forced to interact with other people, and there was no cell phones and stuff, so you couldn't just call up your friends. I remember, we paid long distance fees to call the next city over. That was a deal. I remember I had girlfriends that lived in other cities, and I had to budget that in for my allowance, like how much I could call them, how many minutes I could call them.
That's right.
So you had to go out and interact with other people. So these kids, my kids and kids of this generation, a lot of them were having problems with these sorts of things, and my son's one of them. Now, my middle son, is exactly the opposite. He has no problems with social interactions. So it's not like it's a universal thing. But, so when my eldest one comes home, we're like, okay, you need to get out of the house. Like, I don't care what you do. Don't be here. You're 21, almost 22 years old, and, you're at home all the time. But we're not realizing, I don't know why the hell I'm talking about any of this. We're not realizing
it's
that
your therapy session, weekly therapy
he
session.
Is apparently, he is, even where he is now, like, we found out, he bought a car, a little Honda Fit.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a freaking toy. I mean, the wheels on it look like they should be on like a wagon.
Yeah, it's got those
small.
like 16-inch wheels.
It's adorable, and he's okay. I think I'm taller than you, but I am not tall by any stretch. I'm like 5'6", 5'7". I'm in that range.
Oh, okay.
My sons are all like 5'11" and taller.
Okay, yeah.
So he folds himself into this. The front seat is as far back as it'll go, right? It will not go.
Okay.
It almost has to do that thing where he rips out the front seat and sits in the back seat sort of thing. But he's like, he told us the other day, he's like, oh yeah, I've been going to the climbing gym. Because he used to rock climb back in the day. And I'm like, so he is going out and doing things on his own. It's just that we don't see it as much. So, when he comes home and we start harassing him, he'd just rather stay up in Tampa for right now. It's not that far away. He can come home whenever he wants. So it's kind of, right now we're kind of, as far as space goes, we're not so bad. But there's just the end of the school year is always like this, where no matter what we do, like every day is full to the brim. And my wife's birthday is tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And
happy birthday
she's
to
got
Nell.
like she's got a work thing, and she's got some sort of work mixer in the evening. Like, we're not celebrating her birthday. Like, we never.
You can
really
call
do.
the mixer the celebration. Go have some drinks and some fun.
I am not going to be there because
okay.
I have a class that I'm going to. So that night. So, and I have kids' duties otherwise. So, it's just, this last weekend, we got together with some friends and had a dinner and called it her birthday celebration. But,
I mean,
it's
when you think about it, it is a little bit strange that, like, we're middle-aged people and we're still doing the birthday thing. It's like, do we really need to celebrate the birthday thing when you're middle-aged?
I've got a friend who is less than a handful of years younger than me.
Yeah,
and she makes a big deal about her half birthday.
Oh,
and
right.
Not just her anniversary, but the first date anniversary.
Still,
and I'm like,
wow.
You have lost. I would divorce you immediately. I am not doing that.
Yeah, like when you're a teenager and it's young love and you like want to celebrate your month anniversary, it's like, I get it. I get it. That's totally fine. When you're doing that in your 40s and 50s, so it's a little bit odd.
That's the kind of...
Keep your sense of whimsy and youth. Why not? I mean, there's enough stuff to bring you down in this world. I'm not necessarily going to rag on anybody too much for just...
No, but if I'm going to get in trouble for not remembering dates, we have a problem. That is not...
Okay.
That is not happening. I'm not happy. She showed up... she found out when my birthday was, and she showed up to one of the bike rides with a happy half birthday. Because it was my half birthday. Because my birthday was over.
That is not a thing. I'm sorry, half birthdays are not a thing. I know.
Half birthdays are not a thing. So she showed up at a bike ride with a sash or a pin or something with a happy half birthday because my birthday was during like the hurricanes. And we didn't even talk about it during the hurricane.
I mean, your very first half birthday, when you turn 6 months old, that's a thing.
Yes.
After that, half birthday's not a thing.
And some parents do like 18 months too.
Sure.
I hate it when they count in months.
When you're counting in months still instead of years, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you that. All right, jeez, what are we talking about, Rob?
I don't know.
What are we talking about?
You cannot blame me for making this podcast episode go long this week, Tom.
I got way off track. I just slipped over. It's been busy, and it's the end of the school year. Into
it was your chance to vent. Your chance to vent. Captive audience. We've got to listen.
I have lots of chances. We have to start talking before this podcast so I can get this stuff out.
Oh sure. That time just exists. Just magically that time shows up out of nowhere.
Oh yeah. So how did the podcast sound last week? Do we have to apologize or talk about that at all? Or
no? It came out fine.
It sounded okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But we had technical issues on our side.
A little bit, yeah. On my end only. No, it was my Audacity recording was all wonky in its timing. So no, but I have a backup from the OBS recording, so I grabbed that, which isn't quite as high quality, but after all the processing we throw on it and the massive amount of compression, I don't think it really sounded all that different at all.
Right. Okay. So again, did not watch anything.
Okay.
I'm trying. I told my wife about somebody gave us a code. Not gave us. I tested the code for somebody for that movie. What was it?
Oh, that one.
Ungentlemanly
Yeah.
conduct.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. That's right.
Who's got the same? It's got the same guy that's in Reacher, which we started watching.
Alan Richardson from Reacher. Yeah.
And my wife, I told her that we had that, and she's like, "Oh, I want to see that."
Yeah.
And that's as far as that got. So once school, I'm telling you, once school is out, my youngest son is moving on, going to work at a Boy Scout camp in North Carolina. So he'll be gone for like 7 weeks. And everything will settle down. I'll have time to watch TV again. That's
sure. Plans never change.
Nobody hold me to that statement. Please do not.
Do not a guarantee.
Do not call because I will be depressed if I'm not able to watch things. I still want to finish watching or even start watching Andor, but I want to finish watching all the Star Wars stuff I've missed. Is there Marvel stuff?
There's a bunch of Marvel stuff. There's a whole bunch of Marvel stuff that we're behind on. Yes. Tom's guarantee to watch something, * not a guarantee. Yeah.
Not a guarantee. So what have you watched, Rob? Because in between your Switch dramas, I'm sure you've had time to watch things.
Not so much. So, I mean, here's the thing. I watched a couple of NHL playoff games in full because, I mean, usually I was either recording them and kind of skipping through them or I was just catching highlights. But this time, so to set the stage, what happened was there are 7 Canadian NHL teams in the league right now. 5 of them made it into the playoffs. So only the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks missed the playoffs. So 5 out of the 7 Canadian teams got into the playoffs. 16 teams total get in there. So, almost half of them, or, a third of them were Canadian teams. And so there was the possibility, it wasn't exactly probable, but there was the possibility of it ended up being 2 Canadian teams in the final. This, theoretically could have happened because we had 2 Canadian teams in the West Conference and 3 Canadian teams in the East Conference. So in the very first round, right away, you had Toronto versus Ottawa. So one of them was getting knocked out. That was guaranteed within the first round. But all of the Canadian teams, except for Montreal, made it into the second round. So it was actually kind of looking, and the thing was, Winnipeg was the number 1 team in the West, and they were actually the number 1 team in the league overall. End of the regular season, Winnipeg was the top team. They win the President's Trophy in the NHL. They were the top team in the regular season. And Toronto was the top team in the Eastern Conference. So by the points, by the way the regular season went, by the statistics, the possibility of those 2 teams meeting up in the final was not out of the question at all. So now we're into the final 4 teams, and there is only 1 Canadian team left. And so it came down to Game 7, the final game for both Winnipeg versus Dallas and for Toronto versus Florida. And it was a close game in the Winnipeg game, but Dallas pulled out the win, and it was not a close game for Toronto versus Florida. Florida absolutely trounced them in their Game 7.
No.
So the thing is...
so terrible that you guys are getting beat by Florida. I'm going to be honest with you.
Florida's got a strong hockey team.
Well, it makes sense because people when they move away from cold, they want heat.
Sure.
And that's what we have right here. We have a bunch of it.
Perfect for ice hockey rinks year round.
It gets a little cold.
Well, sure.
It gets a little cold
there's
for a month or 2.
There's 2 weeks where it isn't 80 degrees plus. But yeah, so the thing is, being on the West Coast, we actively root against Toronto. It's it's a friendly rivalry thing, but it's Vancouverites hate Torontonians. That's just kind of the thing that we do. It's not real, but when it comes to sports, we always kind of root against them. But yeah, I was kind of hoping for that all Canadian final, and then all the Canadian teams outside of Edmonton, Edmonton has a good team, but we all hold a grudge against Edmonton right now, all the other Canadian teams, because for like 6 years in a row, they got like the first or the second overall draft pick, which was like ridiculous. So their team was so stacked that like some of those number one draft picks, they just had to let go because they didn't have the budget to keep them all. Yeah. So it was just kind of ridiculous because it just meant, nobody else could get any of these like top seeded prospects. And Edmonton just dominated it for so long. So we're all kind of like, grumble. But it does look like they have a pretty good chance of winning the Stanley Cup this year. So that is all to say, I did not end up watching one of the remaining two 2025 Oscar Best Picture nominees this week. I just ran out of time because I watched 2 full hockey games while they were happening, not even skipping through commercials and all that. So that ate up all of that time. And then on top of that, the 2 remaining movies I have are I'm Still Here, which there was a Joaquin Phoenix like pseudo documentary by that same title several years ago, but this is a completely different thing. I mean, it makes no bones about it in any of the trailers or anything like that. It's going to be a bummer of a movie, and I wasn't quite in the mood for watching a real bummer of a movie this week. So not that it doesn't look good, it definitely looks like it's going to be a heart-wrenching bummer of a movie, and I wasn't totally in the mood for that. Also, that movie is not on any of the streaming services. It is buy or rent only, so I'm like, okay, I'll wait until I'm more in the mood to see that. And then the other one that I still have remaining is Amelia Perez, which had all kinds of controversy around it. I don't know whether it's deserved or not. It's actually a musical. I'm kind of looking forward to that one, but it is only available on Netflix. And when I say only, I don't mean just that's the only streaming service that has it. I mean, it's not available to rent or buy. The only way you can watch it at home is on Netflix. And as you all know, I'm like boycotting Netflix right now. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I can do it for a month with the stupid ads that are absolutely awful. And that costs $1 more than renting it, but it's not available to rent. So yeah, anyway, all of that means I didn't watch a movie this week, but I did finish up the 4th and final season of Mythic Quest on Apple TV Plus. So I have not watched the side quest episodes yet. There are 4 of those side quest episodes still to watch, but yeah, the actual series as a whole, 4th and final season, has wrapped up. So the writing on this totally made sense. They did the thing of really wrapping everything up in a nice, neat little bow. And I heard they actually did kind of like rewrites and reshoots to change the ending so that, because originally they were thinking there might be a season 5 and they were going to leave it a little bit more open-ended, but the way that it's shown is putting a nice bow on everything. And so it was kind of like, well, I mean, no matter what you do, you're never going to satisfy absolutely everybody when you're ending a series. So they chose something that did, tie up everything very nicely. But I was kind of like, oh, they did a lot of very good bittersweet moments throughout this season because they kind of knew they were coming to an end, and they were proposing that, all the characters that we've come to know in this show are kind of maybe going their separate ways in that. And so like I say, with tying everything up very, very neatly and tidily, maybe didn't quite feel like where everything was sort of ushering you throughout the season. It all ended a little bit more cleanly than I might have expected, but at the same time, it did give a satisfying conclusion. So yeah, this is a really well-written, well-acted show. And a lot of bittersweet in this one, less laugh-out-loud moments and a lot more bittersweet in this final season. But I thought they did a good job of it. So Mythic Quest as a whole, as an entire series, I can definitely give a big thumbs up to. There are some absolute standout episodes, particularly in season 1 and season 2 that I absolutely adore as almost standalone little mini movies all on their own. But yeah, the series as a whole was really, really fun. So thumbs up from me.
All right. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Yes. I have so many plans of things I want to watch. I have so many things I want to watch. I can't tell you. I will say that the KEF speakers and the NAD receiver have done very well so far.
Sure.
I'm very happy with the sound quality from the KEFs is just so pleasant.
Yeah.
I do have room treatments up in my all around this place because people had given me some, and my wife's like, I don't know if I want those hung up. I'm like, okay, don't leave the house then, because when you do, I'm gonna start hanging them up. And that's exactly what I did. I have them I think I have them in almost every room.
Nice.
And I have one in my bedroom that's like 4 feet tall and 6 feet or 8 feet wide.
Okay.
It's humongous, but it's like it's halfway tucked behind my dresser or armoire or whatever that thing is called. So it's not like we don't have any room treatments in here. It's better. Like my parents' brand new house, I'm so irritated. They bought this brand new house, and they're like,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, this place echoes.
Yeah, you
And
mentioned
they're
they were decorating and did not use the opportunity.
I'm like, because they're old. Every other house they've ever had, every picture that's on the wall is something that they've chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And they got this designer guy to go to like Home Goods and pick up a bunch of random like Motel 6 art.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Motel 6 art, but you know
like
what I mean?
stock artwork.
It doesn't mean anything to them.
Yeah.
It's just the right color.
Yeah.
So the KEF speakers sound so nice in here,
Good.
even with the little bit of room treatments we have in there. I am going to be a little bit more bullish on the KEF speakers in these sorts of situations, because that concentric driver really does tame down. You can position them however you want. You can put them on their sides, put them upside down. I mean, you can do whatever you want, because the concentric drivers doesn't really care. It's
Even dispersion in all directions. Yeah.
Gives a lot, and I think they're really good looking. I think they look better with and they don't look like you're going to damage them by a little finger touching them or a dog tail or something like that. So I think overall they're just a really nice speaker. All right, let's get on to the podcast. This is AVRant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Go to the website. You can find our shows or show notes, Flickr albums to follow along with the pictures of which we will be speaking, and any links to products or articles that we'll mention during our answers to your questions or news or whatever. You can find us at facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. You can contact Rob directly at rob@avrant.com. His socials is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com. I'm not doing socials these days. I'm curmudgeonly, I guess is what I am now. I'm a curmudgeon.
Yes.
So I'm gonna have to.
Lee Overstreet was bemoaning on Blue Sky how nobody talks to him on Blue Sky. He's like, where's all the engagement? So I waved at him over on Blue Sky.
I waved one finger at him. I'm sorry. I reluctantly got on Twitter to begin with, and for a while I liked it.
Yeah.
But I'm not so addicted to that type of social media that I need to, like, when one falls apart. And I'm sorry, Twitter is dead. I don't. You may not think so.
Pretty darn close.
But it's in my world, it does not exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
And anybody who's still using it is like, and I feel the same way about Facebook. Facebook is just it. I mean, I use it because the groups that I am a member of, they all use it.
Yeah.
So I use it to keep up with these. It's almost like a bulletin board that you walk past at your apartment complex. As you're leaving the foyer. Foyer. That's what I feel Facebook is, and Twitter is dead, and Instagram. I've just never gotten it.
I never really got into Instagram myself, and Threads never went took off the way that I was hoping it to. So I did. I follow a lot of tech journalists on Blue Sky because that's a lot of the people who are there that I'm interested to follow, and so it was just kind of interesting because they were saying how the number of views that they still get over at X dwarfs the number of views that they get on Blue Sky. But if they actually look up the metrics of how many views lead to clicks that actually go to their website or to their blog or their Substack or wherever they're writing, it's
just bots over there.
Yeah, Blue Sky's 1-to-1. So they're they actually get more clicks that lead to their actual site from Blue Sky, despite having 10 times fewer the views, or perhaps even more than that. So that at least is a somewhat good sign.
Yeah, Twitter is just smoke and mirrors now. It's just it stopped being actual engagement a while ago. Let me see. Blah, blah, blah. We did all that. So we want to thank our listeners of the week.
We do.
Become a listener of the week. Support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com. Click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and you can send us a PayPal donation from this page that it will send you to. This week, we got Brandon did that this week. Thank you very much, Brandon.
Yes, Brandon. Thank you very much for that PayPal donation. We really appreciate your financial support.
If you would like to support us monthly and not have to think about it and every month go to a PayPal site to send us some money. You can go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can become a monthly contributor. We currently have 132 patrons, and thank you very much to all 132 of you.
That is right. That is, again, patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. So a big thank you to our 132 patrons over there.
All right, and if you can't support us financially, we understand. Just do something else, and we'll mention you here. One of the things you can do is if you have some of those digital codes for movies that you're not sure they're going to work on your account, you can send those to us, and we'll test them out for you. So Infinite Gary and Greg both sent codes for us to test out, and or for me to test out, and I can confirm that they all worked.
Yeah.
So congratulations. You guys have working codes.
Yeah, thanks, Infinite Gary, and thank you, Greg, for using that service we provide. It's
free.
Movies Anywhere, which instantly tells me, not going to work in Canada. So off to Tom they went, and very, very nice to confirm that those codes did in fact work.
And we also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through Rob's sadness at Canadian hockey sucking in comparison to Florida.
One hope left, and not exactly our favorite team, but still got to root for them now.
Rob is torn.
Look, I'll throw it out there. I think Carolina's going to win the Stanley Cup this year. That's my prediction. We'll see how it goes. There, it's out there now.
All right. Got notes of gratitude from Ilango, who recalls that he moved to Canada from Michigan back in 2010. He's pretty sure he was already listening to us at that time. But he found his first email to us from 2015. So without question, he's been listening for at least that long, and he's glad we're still going strong. Yeah. Mike says he's listened to every episode for the past 12 years. Manuel?
I don't think so.
Manuel? I don't know. Manuel. He's part of the 2 Hour Plus Club. Got Sebastian, who thanked us. Kevin, who used our YouTube links to find my old YouTube channel, where he found our much older AVRant episodes, and it's been fun going way back and also learning the history of AVRant that way. Greg says he is glad we're one of the few home theater shows that doesn't just cater exclusively to the 1%. And Ray. So we got notes of gratitude from Ilango, Mike, Manuel, Sebastian, Kevin, Greg, and Ray. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, and I'll say the names one more time so they came from my lips. We got Ilango, Mike, Manuel, Sebastian, Kevin, Greg, and Ray. Thank you all very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really, really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
All right, in the news, Warner Brothers Discovery's Upfronts presentation. Is that a Upfronts? That's a capitalized?
Yeah, the Upfronts. It's the TV Upfronts. That's where they talk to the advertisers, and this is all the networks and everything. And they're like, here's the shows that we're going to have this year. I mean, it used to be you had the broadcast networks. It was very easy. Here's our schedule. Here's our upcoming shows. Here's the pilots we're excited about. Don't you want to spend your advertising dollars with us? So that's the Upfronts.
I guess you probably also give you an idea of what the shows are about, so that you're I want to not associate my brand with that particular type of show. Or maybe I definitely
you want to associate your brand with every show we're putting on. That's the way the executives feel.
At their Upfronts presentation last week, Warner Brothers Discovery, they announced their streaming service, Max, will be rebranded this summer. God, what is wrong with you people?
So we had...
What is with the rebrand? This is somebody justifying their job.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Like maybe David Zaslav with his, we're going to shelve all our movies.
Just stop rebranding things. I understand I understand it occasionally. If you were to say, okay, we're going to roll Marantz and Denon into one, and this is the new name, I am okay with that. That makes sense. But we're not here's a service, here's the same service, but with a different name because somebody on board in marketing hadn't done anything this quarter and needed to justify their paycheck. So
we had back in the day we had HBO as the premium cable subscription that you had, and then when that started to move online, you had HBO Go, which was the companion app thing that only worked on phones, and then you had HBO Now, which was a way to get it on home devices or computers at home, and that. So you had HBO Go and HBO Now going for a while, and then they eventually, once they wanted to just be Warner Brothers, just wanted to have their own Netflix-like service. That's when you had HBO Max. That's when that started.
Yes.
And then little by little, HBO Go and HBO Now got, they got pulled down. So those don't exist anymore, and it was all HBO Max. But then over in a separate company at the time, you had Discovery Plus. The Discovery Network had their streaming service, Discovery Plus, and that's where David Zaslav was working. And then Warner Brothers got sold to Discovery because AT&T decided it was finally time to rid themselves of Warner Brothers. And so you got Warner Brothers Discovery mashed together, and David Zaslav became the CEO of the entire thing. And he is like, well, what people really want are really trashy reality shows. And so we've got that.
Not wrong.
We've got that at Discovery, and that's going to be what we push out there. And so we're going to get rid of that HBO branding, and we're just going to mash it all together and go with the short name. And so we just had Max, and that's where Max came from. It was the combination of HBO Max and Discovery Plus, and everything except the word Max got dropped. And so for the past 3 years, we've had Max.
All right.
Yes.
So in a move that they say demonstrates their, quote, willingness to keep boldly iterating, end quote, and to reflect the, quote, evolution influenced by changing consumer needs, end quote, Max will no longer be called Max. It will instead take on the distinctively new name of, drum roll, please.
Yes.
No drum roll. Okay. HBO Max. The amount of cocaine they're doing over there at Discovery, Warner Brothers Discovery, must be like 1970s level of epic. I mean, it must be insane that somebody could do this and could propose this and not have everybody in the room go, but what? So anyways, this is a brave new direction they're going in.
As I can take from Wicked, such braverism, that name change.
So Warner Brothers Discovery's own press release says that, just as a big, long quote. So, no consumer today is saying they want more content. I'm sorry.
This is what they said in their own press release. We're just quoting.
No consumer today is saying they want more content, but most consumers are saying they want better content.
Yeah.
With other services filling the most basic needs with volume, Warner Brothers Discovery.
Other services are doing that.
Warner Bros. Discovery has clearly distinguished itself through its quality and distinct stories, and no brand has done that better and more consistently over 50 plus years than HBO. Are you kidding me? Like, did nobody in the room just say we lifted this directly from Apple? Apple has almost no content, on their original series, right? I mean, their streaming service
they got more
is
than
like,
you would imagine. They do a terrible job of marketing it.
But it's still when we had it, I was like, man, there's nothing on this thing. There's like 12 shows or something, and we watched. We started a couple of them and didn't really like them. We were like, all right, well, once the soccer one comes back, we'll get it again, and that's the only reason for us to get it.
Welcome to Wrexham, or Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
Okay. Ted
Lasso. And
both of those are soccer shows.
Have you guys lost your minds? Anyways, they say the programming that is working best is HBO, recent box office movies, and certain reality shows. So they would deprioritize other genres that drive less engagement.
Sure.
Oh, good.
I know, right? They already killed Sesame Street and got rid of all of the old Looney Tunes cartoons, because nobody who would ever want to maybe look at that catalog of Warner Brothers content. We don't think of Looney Tunes and Warner Brothers as going together. Why not get rid of all of that? Yeah, anyway, it's going to be back to HBO Max this summer. You don't have to do anything if you're already subscribed to Max. Nothing's going to change. Just the logo on your app on your screen is going to change. And it's going to be back to HBO Max. Hooray!
All right, Kaleidescape announced yet another new player, the Strato E. We had no idea this was coming. It uses the exact same housing as the least expensive Strato M player that just came out not that long ago, but while the Strato M is limited to 1080p resolution, output the new E can output 4K. God help us. How many questions are we getting from Infinite Gary?
Yeah.
And that's really the only difference. It has the same 480 gigabyte solid state drive capacity, which will hold 5 or 6 4K movies. And the price is $3K, right in between the $2,000 M and the $4,000 V. The more expensive V has twice the built-in storage capacity and uses an aluminum chassis with a cooling fan inside, while the E is entirely passively cooled. That seems like a bonus to me, but whatever. The V also provides an analog audio output, while the E only output is HDMI. Who cares? And the Strato V can run Kaleidescape's Legacy CoStar system when connected to a Terra server. CoStar brings the Kaleidescape Premier system that lets you play physical discs from their massive disc carousel hardware into the Strato interface. The Strato M and the new E players cannot do that. So if you're still rocking to that disc carousel, you'll want the Strato V instead. So really, it's just 4K. It's all it is.
It's a Strato M that can do 4K. For $1,000 more, $3,000 is the price. Now, so here's the thing.
I mean, this makes sense.
Yeah, in a vacuum, I really like that the Strato E is here now. Yeah, like if this had been the only new player announced. Let's imagine the Strato V and the Strato M never got announced, and they just announced this Strato E player, which can work standalone. Yeah, it can only hold about 5 movies at a time, but it can work completely standalone. You don't have to purchase a $10,000 plus, Terra server to go along with it. It can work all on its own. $3,000, way less expensive than anything else that they ever sold before. So in a complete vacuum, I'm like, Strato E, fantastic. I love that this thing is here. Where I feel a little bit strange about it is all the people who bought a Strato V within the past couple of months, they're like, that was $1,000 more than this one. Is that $1,000 more really worth being able to hold 5 more movies at a time? Because, I mean, the Strato V was not anybody's standalone solution for their entire movie library. People are going to quickly have more than 10 movies in their library, so they were going to be offloading and downloading movie that they want to watch on a Strato V. It really doesn't change that experience on the Strato E, holding about half as many movies. So I'd be a little bit mildly upset if I recently bought a Strato V and had no idea that the Strato E was coming. And then the Strato M really does look like an artificially held back piece of hardware to get it down to that $2,000 price point, because these are the same innards between the Strato M and the Strato E. There's the same chip inside. It's the exact same chassis. It's the exact same hardware.
God help us if somebody learns how to hack the thing.
Well, yes. Yeah, exactly. So, outside of a vacuum, I'm like, a little bit weird. But I mean, look, all of these companies are completely enamored in love with the good, better, best. Everyone buys the middle one, so that's exactly what the Strato E is. It's the better, it's right in the middle. It's all the features you want for $1,000 less than the V, which is like really the only reason anybody would get that now is that they still have that CoStar system. That's true. Who's so worried that they have to have a left and right analog audio output that somehow that would be the defining factor, or that the twice as much storage is really going to be the make or break, since they were going to be offloading and downloading anyway. So yeah, this is
it has twice the built-in storage though.
Yeah,
the V does.
Yeah. But still, it's 10 instead of 5, right? So it's not a massive change in the experience. And then, one person asked, because many people wrote in about this to our email when they saw this news, and I think it was Henry who was like, Strato M. Like, is this Strato E a reaction from Kaleidescape, from the sort of backlash of people being like, where's the 4K on the Strato? I'm like, no, there's no way that they had all of this, was a sudden reactionary thing to it. But what I do think is going on here is we know that the Strato M has no profit margin. It is not making anybody any money. It's not making their retail partners any money whatsoever. It's not making Kaleidescape really any money at all. So that Strato M is pretty much a loss leader for the company just to be able to hit that $2,000 price point that they've never, ever come close to before. The Strato E, like I say, it's the same. Like hardware, the hardware is the same as the Strato M. There's no real difference here. It's a software difference that is like unlocking the 4K output. So it costing $1,000 more, that gives a little bit of a profit margin especially to their retail partners who absolutely cannot discount that Strato M without losing money themselves. The Strato E gives that little bit of profit margin wiggle room, and it's enough for them to say, but don't you want the 4K? And so, like, in that way, I get it, but like, I'm a little bit perturbed by the way everything rolled out, especially for the people who just bought a Strato V like 2 months ago. That I'd be a little bit ticked off about.
There was a lot of people who were calling this podcast and asking us and saying, hey, is the 1080p versus 4K thing really worth it? And we're like, probably. Yeah, I mean, to us,
I still say get the Strato M because $1,000 is still a lot of movies that you can buy instead.
Yeah. I do, but I know there's going to be some buyer's remorse going on out there, and good luck returning those things, I guess. Marantz has released a new Pro and a new 12-channel amplifier, the AV20 and the AMP20. They cost $6,000 each, which sounds about right for what I would expect for this this type of product. Since the Denon A10H receiver came out last year, you might have been able to guess that it would be a Marantz sister model, and the AV20 Pre-Pro is it. The AV10, remains the 15.4 channel flagship at its $7,000 price, a whole $1,000 extra for a bunch of amps.
Well, for 2 extra channels of processing. Yeah, so this new AV20, you might be thinking 20, that's a bigger number than 10, but Marantz did the whole thing where the higher the numerical number, the lower in the series it was. So the AV10 was at the very top. They had like a Cinema 30, Cinema 40, Cinema 50, all the way down to a Cinema 70 in the AV receiver lineup. So this AV20 comes in between the AV10 flagship and the Cinema 30, which is the flagship receiver. So this AV20 Pre-Pro slots right in between, $6,000. All
right. So the AV20 can process up to 13.4 channels, but it has 15 speaker pre-outs, both RCA and XLR, which allow it to change between different configurations, such as 9.4.4 for Atmos, but 7.4.6 with the center height and voice of God top surround for Oro 3D.
Yes.
No matter what, though, 13 speakers playing simultaneously is the maximum for the AV20. If you want 15 speakers to play all at the same time, you need the AV10. Yeah. Everything else is as you expect, with all the HDMI ports being HDMI 2.1, 40 gigabits per second, and Odyssey Multi-QXT32 included. You can pay extra to add Dirac Live room correction and Dirac Live bass control. But the exciting news is that Marantz officially stated that Dirac Live Active Room Treatment, or the ART, is going to be supported, isn't available just yet, and will require a future firmware update, but it's officially announced and a first for Denon and Marantz. So will Dirac ART also be made available for the AV10 and the Denon receivers with the A10H and the A1H? We'll have to wait and see. That's a processing issue more than anything, I would imagine. They have to have the right ability to process.
Yeah, like I don't see any world in which the A10H does not get this, because these are definitely based on the same platform, the AV20 from Marantz and the A10H from Denon, that came out a little bit earlier, but they are definitely on the same platform. The A1H and the AV10 from Marantz Pre-Pro, like, I don't know if whether the platform changed there or not. I'm not exactly sure. I wouldn't be surprised either way, honestly, however that announcement comes out. But fingers are crossed. I have no idea if any of the lower model receivers might get some of this. Because, I mean, you do have like the X6800H receiver from Denon that's been out for, a year and a half, almost 2 years now. And that can do 13. It can process 13, and it has 4 subwoofer outputs. But whether it has the processing chips inside that are upgradable for Dirac ART, I am not sure. So some unknown here. But yeah, I would be very shocked if the Denon A10H does not get Dirac ART, since they've confirmed it for the AV20.
So the AMP20 is a Class D amplifier with 6 of the stereo amplifier modules, delivering 12 channels in total. 200 watts per channel to 8 ohms, which with 2 channels driven, and 400 watts per channel into 4 ohms, again with 2 channels driven. The exact same specs as the AMP10, but the AMP10 has 16 channels. So those 12 amp channels can be bridged to create 6 400 watt outputs into 8 ohms if you're going to do something like that.
Yeah.
Here's my question. I wonder, because again, we're going to be wondering about what's going to happen with Denon and Marantz in the future. Is there a market? Is there enough of a market for them just to, like you had, I think you suggested last week, that Marantz be all pre-pro type of things? I
mean, I would say maybe Arcam is just all pre-pro, and then Marantz is the high-end AV receivers, and Denon is the more entry to mid-level receivers, or some kind of stratification like that. I mean, this is all going to be up to Harman, which is owned by Samsung themselves. So ultimately, there's some Samsung executive who's going to make the decision on all of this. We have no idea.
They should ask David Zabloff. They should ask him.
Sure. Yeah.
He's just going to Let's just call it Max. They're all Maxes now.
Right. But the AMP20 being the partner model to the AV20 Pre-Pro, a little bit strange because the AMP20, you've got 12 channels and the AV20 can do 13. And it can also connect as many as 15. You can have those connections while it processes a group of 13 of them at any one time. So in a way, the 16-channel AMP10, which was already out before and cost $7,000. The new AMP20 costs $6,000. The AMP10 is almost like the better choice if you want to completely maximize all the connection possibilities of that AV20. But, the funny thing is there's the AV10, which can process 15 speakers simultaneously. And then you've got this 16-channel AMP10 amplifier to go along with it. But the AV10 has 17 sets of pre-outs, again, being able to do the switching between configurations, particularly for OO3D things. So in either way, if you completely maximized, you'd actually have to add another amplifier to this setup. It's kind of funny that they didn't get the channel numbers to completely line up perfectly. But there it is.
I find that strange.
It is a little bit odd.
I don't understand why you would release
these stereo Class D amplifiers, so it's always going to be an even number. They're not going to have an odd number unless they want to just deactivate one of them artificially. So I guess they're like, hey, buy amp
that's
your
never
center.
been done.
Buy amp your center, and then it becomes,
Yeah, that's weird. Comments. Mike wanted to share a shopping tip that worked out very well for him at BestBuy.com. He knew the SVS 4000 series subwoofers are currently discounted since they've been replaced by the new 5000 Revolution series. He heard about that from us, actually, so he was keen to buy a pair of PB4000s priced at $1,800 instead of the $2,300 each. Plus, by purchasing two at the same time, you get an additional 5% discount for going dual. Mm-hmm. The thing is, SVS is only selling the black ash finish at that price, and he wanted the gloss black ones. Mm-hmm. That wasn't an option on the main page, but in SVS's outlet store section, they had gloss black PB4000 available for the same $1,800 price. Armed with that knowledge, he headed over to Best Buy because he has their credit card, which offers for interest-free financing as long as you pay off the balance in full before the financing period is up. Best Buy only had the gloss black PB4000 listed at their full price of $2,400 each, but up at the top of the page is a link that says Shop with an Expert, and that initiates a live chat. The person he got happened to be named DJ. It's probably, there's only one in the continental United States.
Super uncommon name.
Common. Mike asked if they could price match the SVS outlet store price on the PB4000 subs, and lo and behold, they did. I feel like you got lucky, but we'll see. Unlike SVS, they did add a shipping charge, and he forgot to ask if they also matched the additional 5% discount for buying two at once, but they added two gloss black PB4000s to his online shopping cart for him, each of them with a $600 discount, and after sales tax, he was able to click buy for a grand total of $4,150. Mm-hmm. Sure, a lot better than the $5,000 before tax if he hadn't clicked that Shop with an Expert button. He'll pay that off over the next 24 months using the Best Buy card financing plan, and the tip for everyone else is don't be afraid to ask. Make sure to make use of that Shop with an Expert live chat, and you might just save yourself a bunch of money. So there you go.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes people are reticent to use that live chat feature. I do like the live chat customer service thing a lot better than the waiting forever on hold system on the old phone calls, or just waiting for who knows how long for an email reply to maybe come or not. The live chat tends to work pretty well as far as customer service goes for most companies that are using that. So yeah, don't be afraid to make use of it. The worst they can tell you is, no, we can't offer the discount you're looking for, so why not give it a try? I like that advice.
All right. Sebastian thanked us for reassuring him about his Pioneer Elite LX505 receiver purchase. He needed to correct us, though. We mistakenly thought he has Atlantic Tech speakers, which we were very confident will work perfectly with a global 80 hertz crossover, which is the problem. Not problem. That's the thing about the Pioneer Elite, is that it has a global crossover.
Very strange limitation of the Onkyo doesn't have that. It has independent. The Integra doesn't have that. It has independent. But for some reason, the Pioneer Elite version out of there has a global crossover instead of independent crossovers. But, yeah.
But he actually has Q acoustic speakers all around, so he must have been thinking about something else.
I was indeed thinking of someone else. Yeah.
Still all worked out with a global 100 hertz crossover. Instead, he spent some time experimenting during setup, and that's what worked best, and it works well. Also, this is his first time using Dirac, and he's really happy with the results. He just used the phone app version, and that was simple to use and let him manually adjust his subwoofer's target curve a bit to add a little extra punch in the 40 to 60 hertz region. The Pioneer Remote app is also great. It's very quick and responsive, and he's sure glad for that because he is not a fan of the included remote control. But that's okay because everything about the receiver can be controlled from the app, so big thumbs up all around.
Hooray! Yeah, I'm very happy that worked out nicely for you. He got a really good price on it. He was shopping exclusively used for everything he's bought up until now, but he wasn't finding the receiver models that he was looking for on the used market, and but came across a store that was selling a new unit LX505 Pioneer Elite receiver at a really attractive price. So really happy that worked out good for you.
Daniel, last episode we mentioned how we really do not like the Amazon Fire TV OS and interface when it's built into TVs, and how the built-in Roku OS and interface also seems to be getting worse and worse. He completely agrees. And he also agrees that the Google TV or Android TV interface is probably the best option at the moment. But beyond what we mentioned, he wanted to point out that using a Google TV or Android TV streaming box allows you to install third-party launchers that let you customize your experience way more than other platforms. You can also sideload apps and install unofficial programs relatively easily, so he will always pick that option. I have had a Pixel phone since before they started calling them Pixels, and they called them Nexus phones.
That's right.
I had Android phones from the beginning. Very first Samsung Nexus or whatever they called it. And sideloading apps and sideloading interfaces, in my experience, has been a hit or miss. And the misses are, I feel like I just downloaded a bunch of malware to my phone. So while I agree with you that that is an advantage of having an Android over an iOS or phone or a in this case we're talking about other streaming boxes, it is do it with care. Be very careful of what you do, because that can you can find yourself with a nifty new interface that's doing something nefarious behind the scenes. So be a little careful. But yes,
the folks who are fans of doing that sort of thing and doing the side loading on that, do we really need to inform them that Android is going to be the way that they want to go? Because I feel like everyone who is really involved in the side loading of apps onto things and using unofficial apps that aren't coming from the official app store, it's like they probably found their way to Android before they managed to listen to AVRant, but that's okay. I don't mind. I've certainly had the people who've written in upset whenever I say that the Apple TV 4K is my favorite streaming box to recommend, because they're like, you can do so much more with an NVIDIA Shield as long as you open the developer options, unlock it, sideload all these things. And I'm like, yeah, it's not my bag. I'm not an expert in it. I don't know how to advise people on that. And so if we're just talking what is stock out of the box, my personal favorite experience remains the Apple TV 4K. I like the automatic frame rate switching, and that might be my sole reason for saying that I go that direction. But for the people who want to get much more granular, much more manual, and do things outside of the officially supported app stores, then of course an Android solution is going to be better.
Yeah. Gurinder got into that mysterious 24 persons code-locked home theater room at the resort he visited last week. Yeah. It's a big room inside, fully carpeted, and they have seats and screens shifted over to one side so the theater isn't even taking up the whole space. The resort closed it down during COVID, and while it's technically reopened now, they've basically never gone back to promoting or using it. What a strange space. If you're not looking at the pictures on the YouTube, go to our website, because you're going to want to see this. What a strange space. Who did this?
I don't know. It was not us.
I would say it was for like wheelchairs or something, but they're steps. How do you get the wheelchairs to the top?
Well, I guess they can use the front, or they can actually, if you're in a wheelchair, you can sit in front of the front row. There's 4 rows now. I didn't even notice there's 4 rows of seats. I was looking at a smaller image, and I thought there was only 3 rows, but there's four rows of seats in there. Yeah.
So we have the Flickr album on our website, or you can watch the YouTube and see this. But what a strange space. Anyways, it's a big room inside, fully carpeted. They have the seats and screens shifted over to one side, so the theater isn't taking up the whole space. I already said all this. 4 rows of actual theater-style chairs with fold-up seats. The second and third and fourth row are on risers, so it's tiered seating. The 4th row is right up against the back wall, and all the seats are unnecessarily far away from the projection screen at the front, so it looks like a relatively small. So the image itself looks small because of how far. I mean, now, it looks like
the screen can't really be any bigger because it's like floor to ceiling, more or less. I mean, it's a baseboards to ceiling, so they can't really make the screen any bigger.
Why did they?
Honest.
What a strange space.
I know.
It's a JVC projector, really but they're a less expensive DLP model and just a single pair of tower speakers in the front, powered by a Marantz slimline receiver. Oh, God help them.
Yeah,
Gurinder can help but lament all of the untapped potential of this room. And his mind was instantly swirling with ideas. My ideas was like, the crazy person designed this. Like, what is happening?
Maybe
Look
that's
at how
why
far back the projector is, too.
Maybe this is why they're not promoting it.
What a crazy space. What is this? I would walk in and go, I would just immediately peace out. I would just walk in and go, nope.
Why are the seats so far back?
Why is any of this the way it is? Look how far away the projector is. They might be getting 1 lumen off the screen at that distance. It looks insanely far.
The projector is in front of all the seats because of how far back the seats are. Yeah,
that's not. You're seeing the projector window at the back of the room.
Yeah, no. If you're looking at the image that's showing all of the seats, the projector is in front there. There's kind of like a L-shaped soffit for something on the ceiling. And the projector's in front of that. Yeah.
I thought it was in the back wall. Right, that looks like a window.
There's a projector window back there, yeah.
What a crazy space.
I agree.
What is happening?
And I mean, those speakers in that AV receiver, they are not up to this task. That's a mismatch of room size, seating distance, and equipment.
I mean, I don't know what's going to blow first, the tweeters or the AMP channel.
Right.
But one of them's going.
Yeah.
Let's get to the questions here. Tim really appreciated a response a couple of weeks ago when he asked for a definitive minimum room size to create a dream, but small home theater. Tell you what, if you want to see the nightmare of a home theater, we got some pictures for you.
Yeah, we can give you a whole lot more space than necessary if you want to go the opposite direction.
You know what it looks like? It looks like it's a normal sized room, but they put really small chairs in there just to like mess with the perspective.
I mean, I'm thinking that like someone got a deal on a movie theater that was getting rid of all these seats.
Yeah.
Like that's what this brings to mind for me. I don't know if that
is
the case.
But look how small the speakers look when you're in the 4th row. Look how small they look.
Of course.
They look like ants. They're ant speakers.
Oh, dear.
He says we were thoughtful and thorough and very helpful, and he has just a couple of follow-up questions for clarification. He had previously heard about trying to make the dimensions of your room adhere to the golden ratio and how that was supposedly optimal for audio purposes. The dimensions we gave, especially Rob's suggestions, don't match the golden ratio. Rob, they don't match the golden ratio. Is that okay for a dream home theater? He's also heard the room should not be square, but like how far away from being square does it need to be? Rob's 13.5 by 15 suggestion seems pretty close, but it's not a true square, so is that enough? All right, so the golden ratio originates before Dr. Toole's research and a bunch of stuff that we've learned about acoustics and all these other things. So the golden ratio comes down to minimizing standing waves. Mm-hmm. So as the sound bounces around your room, there's certain frequencies that are going to reinforce each other and certain frequencies that are going to cancel out each other. Yeah. Okay. And the golden ratio reduces the number of frequencies that do those things by not having easily divisible between them dimensions. So like if your room is perfectly square, 15 by 15 by 15, let's just say it's 15 feet wide, 15 feet long, and 15 feet high, it's going to have the maximum number. I mean, not the 15 is a maximum
it'll
number,
mean that any sound wavelengths that are a perfect multiple of 15 are going to reinforce and cancel the maximum that they possibly can, because they're going to be perfectly evenly bouncing between the front and back wall, perfectly evenly bouncing between the two side walls, and perfectly evenly bouncing between the floor and ceiling. So you're going to have all of these massive doubling up and canceling out of waves if you were to do that.
So the golden ratio is like us. We were putting room treatments in rooms at the time that the golden ratio was really talked about. We were just like, this is what's happening in the room, in a room, and therefore, in order to minimize the number of standing waves or their interaction, or how strongly they interacted with each other, you need to use this type of dimensions, or these multiples of dimensions, and it's like ratio. So
1.618 to 1. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you do all that. Anyways, we worry less about that now. And the reason is because, room treatments essentially, for the purposes of the sound, remember, you're absorbing sound. Some of that sound, the amount of sound that's bouncing around the room should be less, which means that the dimensions of the room matter less. And the interactions of the sound waves is reduced at the same time. So you can almost think of it like the room treatments are changing the dimensions of your room and making the room as a whole bigger. So let's think about this.
I mean, more than room treatments, it's that now that we're using more than one subwoofer, or recommending that we use more than one subwoofer. Because back when the golden ratio recommendation was like the trending recommendation, everybody was using one subwoofer. Everyone was looking at, hey, the channel count is 5.1. The 0.1 is, many people were thinking of that incorrectly as the subwoofer channel. It is the low frequency effects channel, but many people just thought of it incorrectly as the subwoofer channel. And they're like, it's a 0.1, not a 0.2, 0.4. So it was one subwoofer was absolutely what everybody was using back in the day. And when you have one source of sound for the long sound wavelengths that are going to be a perfect multiple of some of your room dimensions, that's where we ran into these issues. But now that, thanks to Todd Welty and Sean Olive and doing all that research on how to use and position, critically how to position more than one subwoofer, we know that as long as you have at least two subwoofers, and that those two subwoofers are positioned across the room from each other, not both on the front wall or both on the back wall, but across the room from each other, as long as you do that, Todd Welty was on this podcast several years ago, and he was he was wanting to point out to us how, hey, don't worry about a square room. As long as, if you have a cube of a room, you want four subwoofers. You're not going to only get away with two if your room is a perfect cube. But if you have four subwoofers in a perfect cube of a room, and this, we really mean a perfect cube. It has no doors or windows. It has no jutouts or anything. A perfect cube, which would be horrible for a single subwoofer with a single seat. But if you have a perfect cube and you have four subwoofers and you position them in a cross pattern, middle of the back wall, middle of the front wall, middle of the two side walls, even dead center in the middle of a cube, if that's where you chose to sit, still not a problem. You can get away with that as long as you're using more than one subwoofer. So that's why we're much less concerned about adhering to a perfect ratio in the room dimensions anymore. You could have a square room. It's not really a problem. In a square room, you probably want to have four subwoofers ideally, but as soon as you get away from a perfect square by not that much, you can go to two subwoofers and you're going to have very few problems as far as that goes. If you are only using one subwoofer, though, then you will be back to the old situation of having problems in a square room.
Yeah. That's, and when we're dealing with, older advice, we have to remember the context in which it was given. Mm-hmm. And the golden ratio was something that was just, in theory, if you're like, I'm going to build the perfect home theater and I'm going to follow all the advice that's ever been given. And then you're going to go back to the golden triangle, which means that you're sitting just as far away from your speakers as your front two speakers as your speakers are from each other. Yeah,
you and your front, left, and right speakers form an equilateral triangle. Yeah,
which is, again, not something we talk about that much anymore because we're.
You can do it. That's within Dolby spec. It's within everybody's spec. If you want to do that, it's okay.
Right. It wouldn't hurt anything. But, same thing with this. If you were to follow that golden ratio dimensions for your room, would it make things worse? No. Would it make things considerably better? Not as much as having two subwoofers.
Right.
Does. So.
And I'll bet you that making the room in the house that you're building bigger costs more than buying a second subwoofer. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so he's not super familiar with acoustic treatments, which is weird. Asking questions of this podcast and not being super familiar with acoustic treatments.
Most people aren't super familiar with acoustic treatments, so
I know, but
be
you
that
don't
surprising.
get to this podcast. It's not like you go from I am ignorant of home theater as a concept to I'm going to ask a question of Tom and Rob about the perfect home theater. There's some accidental information ingestion on the way.
I don't mind this at all. This is the way it should be.
Rob mentioned the idea of covering the entire front wall with 3.5 inches of thick of insulation plus a 1-inch air gap. Are we talking about that being behind the drywall? Isn't that where the insulation goes? But then why would there be an air gap? So we're saying to have drywall, and then in front of the drywall, you have a 1-inch air gap and then 3.5 inches of insulation. You are correct. The last thing you're saying, which sounds insane to you,
I mean,
based on the way you're saying it,
having insulation
is correct.
Inside the wall for reducing transmission between rooms or for thermal purposes. If this is an exterior wall, then you would still have insulation where you normally think insulation goes in a wall, which is inside of the wall behind the drywall. So we're not saying not to do that.
Right.
But yeah, when we're talking about acoustic treatment, what we're really talking about is, okay, you are familiar with going into a tile bathroom, right? And the tile bathroom, you make any noise in there and it just rings around that room and it's a horrible echoey mess. And sometimes people like to sing in the shower because they can hear the echo of their own voice, but we know that that isn't a great acoustic environment for not having echoes, for having uncontrolled sound. You have this really reverberant, echoey type of room. So if you built a just bare drywall, ceiling and walls, hardwood floor, and you sparsely furnished it, it would also echo and reverberate in there. And we don't want that. We want the sound to be controlled. We want to know that the sound that is coming out of the speakers is pretty close to the sound that actually reaches our ears. And we don't want a bunch of superfluous sounds that are coming from reflections and echoes and ringing and reverberation coming from the room. So if you just brought a bunch of plush furniture and you fully carpeted and you hung heavy drapes and all that type of stuff, then for the vocal region, you would notice that all gets reduced. You don't have like ringing, reverberating voices anymore. Once you have a whole bunch, fully carpeted, heavy drapes, and a whole bunch of plush furniture, you'll notice that voices are a lot easier to understand in that otherwise hard and reflective surface type of room. But for home theater, we care about more than just the vocal region. We care about the deep bass, and we care about the transition from the deep bass that the subwoofers are making up to the higher frequency sounds that the speakers are making. And just normal absorptive things like carpet and plush drapes and furniture, it does a good job in the vocal region, but it doesn't really get down into that where the speakers are transitioning to the subs, and it doesn't really get to the deeper bass. So we need things that are more controlled, more predictable at absorbing lower frequency sounds. And just regular bats of insulation are a great solution because they don't cost a ton. They're already cut to a reasonable size. They come in these bats that are relatively easy to handle. You can put them in easy frames. You can buy ones that are already done for you from places like GIK Acoustics or Acoustimac, two places that we love to recommend. Or you can just put some up on a wall and then, hang some fabric over it, and that'll work really, really well and inexpensively as well. So we're talking about getting soft, absorbent things into your room, but in a thicker and more controlled fashion so that we get to those lower frequencies that just regular things like carpet won't address.
Yeah, and I'm going to put a bunch of links for you to read on AV Gadgets about acoustics.
Perfect.
Room acoustics, acoustic panels, how to build them, all that stuff.
And I'll link to Acoustimac and GIK because they have fantastic information there too. Yeah,
and they have DIY kits too, where it requires.
That's right.
They ship you the parts, and then you just
assemble it. Yeah.
Mohsen in Australia. Mohsen looked up the Nexi Go or Aurora Pro Mark II ultra short throw projector that Rob suggests as a potential replacement for his WeMax A300 UST projector that he's using now. Mm-hmm. It does fit his budget, which is 5,000 Australian, and it could basically be a drop-in replacement without him needing to change his 120-inch sawtooth ambient light rejecting screen. He's made a lot of effort to black out his theater room, and as we mentioned last week, he's also toyed with the idea of switching to a 98-inch flat panel and maybe switching over to a standard throw projector, although that would be considerably more hassle, and plus he'd like you need a new screen. So he's not super keen on going that route, which I'm not super keen on you doing it either. So upgrading to the Nexi Go is pretty much the most convenient option with the path of least resistance, and he's struggling with the idea of dropping down so much in screen size if he were to go the flat panel route. But buying the Nexi Go gives him some pause because it would deplete his current budget, and the underlying technology doesn't appear to be any different compared to the WeMax projector he already owns. So, how significant and worthwhile would be upgrading to the Nexi Pro actually be? He just wants to make sure it would truly be a justifiable purchase before he goes and spends his full display upgrade budget. Get a flat panel, my man. Get a flat panel. Just get a flat panel. If you want, because what you want is an upgrade. That's what you want, is an upgrade. Get a flat panel. Now, you're like, well, I don't want to go down in screen size. Okay, don't go down in screen size. Don't go down in screen size. You have two options. Wait until the prices go down, and they will. I don't know that they'll ever get
on the 115 inch. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know that they're going to go down fast enough for you. But think about how good that upgrade is going to look, in 5 or 6 years when the 115 or 100 inch or whatever is the number that you think is big enough. Or move your seats a foot closer and get the 98 and shut up. Because you will absolutely notice it.
You move the 98 inch a foot off the wall, so it's closer to you by a foot, and then you move your seats a foot closer.
Put on a piece of furniture. It'll look normal. Just put on a piece of furniture. It'll look normal.
And now, technically speaking, the field of view remains very close to the same. So 120 inches from, say, 12 feet away versus 100 inches from, say, 10 feet away. Technically, the field of view is almost identical in that case. But yeah, I always agree. There is you do get a sense of, yes, I am sitting that much closer to the screen. It does feel different going from 100 inch or 120 inches down to 100 inches. I see where he's coming from.
I do, but. Yeah. You are going to spend a bunch of money on a ultra short throw projector, and you're going to afterwards you're going to be like, I think it looks better.
This is a tricky one because let's go in sort of like reverse order, right? So it's like your WeMax ultra short throw projector, the model that you have right now, versus let's imagine there was a 120 inch OLED that you could afford, right? So I mean, massive difference where if you could afford it, there'd be no question that you're like, yeah, that's about as good as an image can get if there were a 120 inch affordable OLED. So one small step down from that, right, is your full array local dimming mini LED backlit LCD TV, and that's like in the 115 inch that you could buy from TCL right now if it were affordable. I mean, it exists, it's just not within the budget that you specified. And it's like, do I think that's every bit as good as the OLED? No, not quite, but it is really good, and it is a massive step up in image quality over what you have with your current ultra short throw projector. Like I say, both of those are unreasonably expensive or literally don't exist. There's nothing over a 97-inch OLED right now. So the next step down would be, okay, it's going to be a JVC projector, right? It's going to be a JVC DILA projector. You'd have to change your screen. You'd have to go way over your budget, but that would be a very noticeable upgrade in image quality, but it would be nowhere near as bright as the flat panel or the OLED. The contrast, while the JVC DILA projectors have the best contrast of any of the projectors that you would be likely to buy as a consumer, it is not the equal of an OLED. It is not even the equal of the full array local dimming mini LED backlit LCD TVs. It is a step down from those, so nowhere near as bright, but as far as projectors goes, that is the best contrast. One very small step down from those would be Sony's SXRD projectors. They've gotten really close to the JVCs now, closer than they were before, but they are a small step down in terms of absolute contrast versus the JVCs. And then a rung below that, and a noticeable rung below that, would be Epson's Ultra Black projectors, which are really good projectors, but they are a noticeable step down in contrast from the Sony's or the JVCs. Now, a sizable step below those Ultra Blacks are going to be any DLP projector, and that's where we are now. But we have some advancements in the DLP projectors that are out there now with, look, it's quote unquote faking it because it's a bunch of dynamic processing. It's using pumping of the laser light engine. So if it's an overall dim scene, they dim down the laser as a whole. So think of it as global dimming instead of local dimming. Just the entire light source gets brighter or dimmer. And then you can add an iris onto that, but it's mostly the processing. It's actually the image processing that's going on. They're doing a whole bunch of futzing around with the gamma that's taking place, and that they can do on a local basis instead of a global basis, and it's gotten pretty sophisticated. So we've got some projectors out there now, and the Nexigo Aurora Pro Mark II is one of them that's utilizing all of this dynamic processing that can be applied on top of a DLP projector. So if you took all of the other displays that I just mentioned away and you just compared the Nexigo, this Mark II version, the second generation version, versus the WeMax A300 that you have right now, you would not mistake one for the other. As long as you let that Nexigo Mark II do all of its dynamic processing, it is like, this isn't, I have to have them side by side. You could walk from one location to another, and as long as the ambient light levels aren't, wildly different or something like that, you would be able to say, oh yeah, the Nexigo I can definitely tell, as long as that dynamic processing is on. It's like, yeah, it looks more contrasty. The black level is deeper. When the image goes dim, the whole thing, just dims down and gets closer to that truer black. But it is not the equal of an Epson Ultra Black, which is not the equal of a Sony, which is a tiny step behind a JVC, which is a clear step behind a full array local dimming LCD, which is a small step behind an OLED, right? So it's like, yeah, we've come many, many rungs down. Like I say, you wouldn't mistake one for the other. It would be a noticeable upgrade. I guarantee you got that Nexigo Mark II, you'd be like, that is a noticeable upgrade from the WeMax that I have. But if you were like, I want to get as close to an OLED as I can, it's like, no, we are many rungs down from an OLED.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. I mean, like, okay, yes, there's a difference. Yes, I see it.
Yeah.
Was it worth all this money? I would rather wait or make a change to my room.
Well, and it's also, you could, for the same money, come down in screen size, no question about it, but you could get the full array local dimming mini LED backlit LCD at the 98-inch screen size, one rung down from the OLED, as opposed to 6 rungs down or whatever it was that I went through, right? Wow. It's like, that's the trade-off. It's like, you are absolutely trading image size for image quality. And if you are like, the image size matters more to me, am I getting a worthwhile noticeable difference by going to this Nexigo? I say yes, it is definitely noticeable, but you have to determine for worthwhile. That's the tough thing, because it's like, how some people look at an edge lit LCD versus an OLED, and I'm like, blatantly different, and some people are like, look the same to me. And I'm like, if that's the camp you fall into,
disingenuous. I think they have to be.
I absolutely know people who are like, looks the same to me. So if that's the camp you fall into, then, well, I don't know. Would you notice the difference between your WeMax and the Nexigo? If that's the camp you fall into, that's the flip side of that argument. So but I think I've explained it enough.
Yeah, I think so too. Ilango is trying to help a friend. His friend would like to install an outdoor projection setup. It will all go within his covered porch. He was hoping to install a pull-down projection screen beneath the overhang and then place a projector against the back wall, which is 12 feet away. Taking a look at this.
Yeah, we don't have like full spinorama images here, so we just got a very, very rough idea what's going on here. But yeah, I mean, I'm assuming by wall he means the wall of the house, and then...
And Ilango is somewhere in Canada, right?
Ilango is in Canada, but his friend is in the States. Yeah.
Okay. So did he say where in the States?
I think Michigan. Curious. I think he mentioned Michigan in his email.
Yeah. Probably just over the border then. Okay. So his friend is aiming for a budget of around $1,000 to $1,500 US, but there's some wiggle room in that budget if needed. He mentioned seeing some sort of 4K 5,000 lumen projector online, i.e. Amazon, for $1,000. But Ilango was thinking that for this budget, a 1080p projector is going to make more sense. Do we have any suggestions for potential screen and projector combos that could work? So outdoor stuff is always problematic. And the reason I asked why, where it was and all of that is obviously the weather that you encounter is going to make a big difference in what's going to happen to your gear. Like, I have friends who live in Colorado, and the air in Denver, and the air there is so dry and lacking moisture for most of the year that like your outdoor grills and stuff, I guess they seem to last forecloser, is what he told me, if I remember correctly. You know, as long as you just do some very easy precautions during snow and all that stuff, they don't ever rust. They don't ever go bad. They just sort of sit there and be grills. And like in Florida, you're lucky if you get 3 years out of a grill. It doesn't make any difference how much you spend on it. The things just rot because of all the moisture that's in the air. So if you have a pull-up screen, a pull-down screen, like I can't imagine it lasting a year here in Florida. Like I can't imagine that it's not going to mold. Like immediately. I mean, it is going to be a
PVC screen. That's what all the outdoor screens are going to be. It's polyvinyl chloride. That's what the material will be.
But they will melt a little bit, and they like. If you guys remember, I had a screen, a motorized screen that I had stored in my parents' house in North Carolina. It was behind their couch in their little bonus room upstairs. Okay. And it just stayed inside. I mean, it was rolled up and it was just there. It was in air conditioning. It wasn't sitting up there cooking or whatever. And when I got back from Australia and I installed it in the new house, I lowered it and it shone. It was shiny. It looked like sparkles, and it was nothing but hot spots everywhere. And I looked into it and it was just, oh yeah, some of these screens have this problem that over time, especially if they're not used, if they're just left rolled up, they will start to leach. The chemicals will leach and interact or whatever, and they get this weird glossy, shiny look, and there's nothing you can do about it. So the thought of having an outdoor pull-down screen, like that's the first thing that really worries me. I would, I mean, obviously there are outdoor solutions that you can go, but you need to be very careful when you're talking to your friend, looking into making sure that these things, what's the longevity? Do some research on the specific products and how well they last. Before you purchase anything, don't just assume that they're going to be okay. Because it might be that, at least with the screen, if nothing else, you're going to want to store it inside, which means not a pull down, but instead something that even a pull up screen, because they do make those that you could use in an outdoor situation.
There's also the price to consider as well, because we're working with a limited budget here. So I just wanted to answer, question directly as asked. I used to point people to Carl's Place all the time for outdoor screens because, bang for buck, they were really, really tremendous. But Carl's Place has completely gotten away from outdoor screens now. They are exclusively selling golf simulator screens now. That is all they do is golf simulators over at Carl's Place. That's where the money was, I guess. So it's not exactly the only game in town, but it's pretty close to it. Elite Screens has their Yardmaster series, and they do have pull-down outdoor Yardmaster screens, both electric and manual, both tab tensioned and just regular hanging. Now, the least expensive of those is going to be the non-tab tensioned manual pull down, of course. And for the 100-inch screen size, like the listed price, I think is around $800 or $900. You can find them on Amazon for about $500 to $600. So that's taking up a sizable chunk of the budget just on the manual pull down non-tab tension screen. But if that's the only solution that your friend is looking for, then Elite Screens with their Yardmaster series at least does have that option. What I think probably makes more sense than what Tom was talking about, though, is if you go over to their regular Yardmaster series, these are predominantly sold as they come with just a quick little aluminum legs that you can set up. But there are ones that just come with eyelets already on them. So what I would have is hooks attached across that eaves, the awning, and then you would hang the screen when you want to use it, and on the eyelets, and then you can roll it up and take it inside when you're not using it, because there's going to be the majority of the time you're not using it. Or you could use it standalone if that works, or they do have a pull up version that's meant to go on a tripod, and that might be the most reasonable solution. Also, they cost less than the pull down ones, or especially the motorized pull downs. That would blow your entire budget if you went the motorized. So that's something I would look at. They're available on Amazon or directly from Elite Screens, and that's going to be the most reasonable solution for the screen as far as I'm concerned. Now, for the projector, I was definitely trying to at least keep the projector under $1,500. And in an outdoor situation, there's no way I would use anything other than a DLP projector, because DLPs have the sealed light path. I don't want to be dealing with the potential for dust to get into the light path, which is nigh unfixable. I want to be dealing with as few filters as possible. So DLP only. And these days, I would be looking for either an LED or a laser light engine for an outdoor purposes. I don't want to be dealing with lamps outside. I don't want to be dealing with humidity getting into a lamp these days. It's getting harder to find lamp-based projectors anyway, and then why put yourself through that trouble when it's not necessary? So if you're falling more on the side of, I want accurate colors, I want as close to a indoor movie experience as I can, but the trade-off would be I'm getting a little bit less light output, BenQ tends to be really good at having good out-of-the-box color accuracy. They have a model, the HT2060, which is 1080p, like you said, but it can actually accept a 4K HDR signal, and it will just tone map that and resolution scale that down to a 1080p pseudo HDR output. $1,250, so it does fit the budget. But yeah, this is going to be in the sort of 2,500 lumen type of range, which is plenty of light, but for outdoor purposes, if you're not waiting until nighttime, it might not be quite what you're looking for there. What I love about this one is it has a little bit of vertical lens shift range to it, which is really unusual to find at this price range. But that can be very handy. And then he did give an approximate distance, and I was keeping an eye on a lot of the throw distance on these projectors is short intentionally. So I was looking for ones that could be placed, lens to screen about 11 feet away, because he was saying the wall is 12 feet from the screen, so there's some depth for the projector itself. So about 11 feet lens to screen. This would actually work for like the 100 to 120 inch screen size. So that's an option. But all of that said, even though the next one I'm going to mention is not as color accurate, it might be the best choice. And that's Optima's ZH420 or ZH420. Still 1080p, but this is over 4,000 lumens. Does not have any lens shift. You might be relying on keystone correction. Does have a suitable throw range and just enough zoom range that it could work for the distance. But the main thing is this one is IP6X rated. So if this is going to be outside and there is any moisture, I mean, this is small and easy enough to just bring inside if it's like really raining outside. But if it's like you forget it out there, it starts to drizzle, like this thing is not going to die. It's IP6X rated. And for that reason, it might be the very best choice. $1,370 for the Optima ZH420. I'm not going to say it's as color accurate as the BenQ, but it is brighter, it is compact, it's IP6X rated. I think that might be the best choice. If your friend is just like, I've got to have me 4K, I'm not going to be able to fit it in the $1,500 budget, but Optima does have their UHZ35. This is $1,700. Looks similar to the last one, but this is genuine 4K. It's a 1080p panel, but it's wobbling at 4 times per frame. But yeah, the price goes up, and the rest about stays the same.
Okay. It's very exciting. Yeah. Brandon was watching the show Bosch Legacy on Amazon Prime Video. Amazon indicates that it's available in HDR10+. He's watched some episodes on his LG C3 OLED, but also on his Sony X900F full array local dimming LCD TV. Neither of those TVs does HDR10+, but they both do HDR10 and Dolby Vision. So, on the LG C3, Amazon Prime defaulted to HDR10, and the HDR graphic popped up in the top right corner of the screen, so he knew the OLED had detected the signal and switched into the correct picture mode. But on his Sony, there was no graphic on the screen or any other indication that had automatically switched to any sort of HDR mode. And that was true whether he was using the Sony's built-in Prime Video app or using his Apple TV 4K, which can support HDR10+. He's quite certain his HDR settings are correct on both TVs, so why isn't his Sony indicating that it's getting at least an HDR10 signal when he watches the show? Why, Rob?
On my Sony, I've never noticed it put a logo up when it switches to HDR mode. If it isn't evident enough from the image itself that you're seeing on screen that it's made a switch, I've always had to just press the little settings menu button and note whether the picture mode has changed, because it will in the settings menu. When you go to the section where you can change what picture mode you're using, that'll indicate if you're in the HDR mode versus the standard mode. My Samsung is the same way. Samsung doesn't put up any sort of logo in the corner or anything like that. You just have to bring up the little settings menu and check the picture mode, and that'll let you know right there if you're in the HDR mode. So I don't think there's anything wrong at all. I've never noticed those logos pop up on a Sony or a Samsung. The LG definitely does. Pops up every logo every time it makes a switch, including when the Atmos audio changes if you're using the built-in thing. But yeah, they don't give those indicators on screen with the Sony. So I don't think there's anything wrong. Press the settings menu and check the picture mode.
Okay.
Yeah.
He read about how Dolby Vision didn't work correctly on his Sony X900F when it first came out. Did that ever get fixed? And were there also problems with the HDR10 at all?
So it never got fixed. Always had an issue with Dolby Vision. That was one of the early ones where it was one of the first that they were doing the source LED Dolby Vision thing, that the TV itself was not taking the raw Dolby Vision signal and doing all of the tone mapping itself. It was just sending information to the source and relying on the source device to do the tone mapping ahead of time. It was the solution that Dolby came up with so that Sony could be one of their partners early on before all the Dolby Vision decoding chips were really ready to roll out to everybody. So there was no fix ever for the Dolby Vision issues that the Sony X900F had. There were never problems with HDR10. It is totally fine to use HDR10.
I'm sorry. We might have to go back to the last question in a few seconds here, but let's go.
Okay.
They've been using the built-in speakers of his LG C3 OLED. They'd like an upgrade, but he wants it to be a very simple setup, no AV receiver, and he figures just a pair of self-powered speakers would be ideal. Mm-hmm. Could we recommend a pair that costs under $500 and then also just an option that costs as much as $1,000? So in fact, we haven't published it yet, but on AV Gadgets, Andrew just reviewed the new Fluence speakers. We had the self-powered speakers, but they have a new set that's out with a ribbon tweeter.
Yeah.
And he says they sound really good.
Yep.
I don't remember the cost, but those are pretty cheap, and I would recommend those.
Yeah, Fluence's whole lineup is going to fit the under $500 a pair bill. If you want compact, as small as you can get, and only $250 for the pair. Fluence's AI41 speakers, that's a 5-inch woofer in those. Not super powerful. You'd be relying on a stereo RCA input on those ones. Doesn't have HDMI input or something like that. But it does have a subwoofer output, and if you just stereo signal, then this will absolutely work. $250, and you want the compact size. 4 different finish options. Some of them look pretty snazzy, so that is definitely one to keep in mind. If you have the space to go a bit bigger and you want to get a bit louder and you're sitting a little bit farther away, then Fluence's AI61, that's a 6.5-inch driver, a little bit more amplifier power, but the same 4 finishes, and only $300 for a pair, so definitely options there. And then those brand new ones with the folded ribbon tweeter, they are the RI71 for the bookshelf ones there, and $400 a pair. They only have 2 different finish options, black and walnut finish. But yeah, that could definitely be a consideration. So yeah, pretty tough to beat the Fluence offerings in the under $500 category. And then if we're going above $500, I would look at Kanto. They've been some of my favorites right now. Kanto Ren, the Kanto REN, $650 a pair, a whole bunch of different finish options, including some funky colors. They got like orange and blue if you want something really kind of off the beaten path and not just the plain black or white, although they have those as well if that's what you want. But the Kanto Rens, they're bigger than you might think. They're pretty chunky speakers here, so do be aware of their physical size. But yeah, these ones do have an HDMI ARC input. Actually, going back, those Fluence RI71s, they have an HDMI ARC input as well. The AI series does not, but the RI series does from Fluence, so that might be a reason to pay it a little bit more on top of the folded ribbon tweeter. But the Kanto Rens, they got the HDMI ARC input, $650 a pair, and then Kanto also has a folded ribbon tweeter version, the TUK, the Tuck. They're $850, but they came out earlier. They don't have an HDMI ARC input. They do have optical, they do have regular left-right, of course, analog, which is perfectly fine. Like, how many TVs don't have an optical audio output that you could use for just stereo? So not really a problem. But if for some reason you were like HDMI ARC only, then you might want to look at the Kanto Ren or go down in price to the Fluence RI71s. So one of those will do the trick, I'm sure.
So Rob mentioned that he prefers to only recommend soundbars that have a genuine 3-channel setup across the front with dedicated drivers for the center. Why? Shouldn't the phantom center created by the left and right drivers of a 2-channel soundbar sound perfectly fine? Is Rob's preference simply so that the center can be boosted independently of the left and right to make vocals easier to hear? Does the same preference carry over to using self-powered speakers? So Rob's going to answer that question, and I will tell you that I don't care. I think that a soundbar is essentially a mono experience, and even my speakers, not even the speakers I was raving about a little bit earlier, the Kefs, are so close together physically that stereo separation is not non-existent, but you have to be sitting very, very specific spot on the couch. Yeah. And even then it's like, So it's essentially a mono experience. Right. So for soundbars, most of the time it's a mono experience. So the reason that he has is not because somehow because you're not going to be able to boost the center in most of these things. It's not really an option.
I mean, if it does have the actual genuine different drivers and a different amplifier for the center channel, then you can independently change that trim level for the center, which is one of the reasons I do recommend it.
You can most soundbars. Do they really have a vocal, like a center channel trim level setting in them? Most of the soundbars I've used that are of that level, I have not seen it. So.
Yeah, they have independent trim levels. I mean, it's just a trim level. It's the same as if you had a AV receiver and a full surround sound setup, just boosting the trim level on your center. It's nothing more sophisticated than that. But for soundbars, I do like having that option. But the other thing is, a lot of the stereo-only soundbars in the low price ranges, they are so small that, yes, they're essentially mono, like you're not getting great stereo separation, but they actually have a bigger problem, which is that they're so close together, you're getting canceling interference. Like, you can sometimes get where the vocals are not just not clear because it's not a particularly great speaker or you don't have a dedicated center. It's like, it's especially not clear because the tweeters are so close together, but still playing separately. They're actually getting destructive interference that's hurting things. It really, really hurts the intelligibility sometimes on those low cost, quite small, they still put the tweeters on either end. If it even has dedicated tweeters, that's the other thing. A lot of them are just a full range, 2-inch or a 3-inch oblong driver or something like that, and really have bad definition. So yeah, it's a shorthand. If you see a lower priced soundbar that at least has separate dedicated drivers for left, center, and right, then the issues of dialogue intelligibility you can usually overcome. That's my reason. Why?
You may be familiar with other. I cannot believe there's now a different dude with a weed whacker in front of my window. Are you kidding me? Are you guys not talking to each other?
First guy didn't get it.
Maybe the first guy didn't do that great of a job. I don't know. In whatever hobbies that you are or professional, professional skills that you have, there's a lot of times there's indications within a product that tells you that the product itself was designed by somebody who kind of knew what they were doing and wasn't just slapped together. And having 3 dedicated driver arrays or individual drivers, depending on the soundbar, for front, center, left, center, right, will indicate to you that speaker was designed more thoughtfully than a soundbar that doesn't have that. So
it also means you can send it a Dolby Digital 5.1 signal as opposed to just the stereo signal, and sometimes just for consistency of sound across a lot of different services, being able to always output Dolby Digital instead of relying on PCM2 channel can be helpful for consistency purposes too.
Yeah. So there's that to consider. Like, that happens in bikes a lot, where I look at the bike and I'm like, ugh. You can tell that they cut corners by not just by the components they put on the bike, but how they organize things, if that makes sense. So he says, how good are wireless subwoofer kits these days? If you can easily run a wire to your first sub, but your second sub is farther away from your receiver, would it be okay to use a wireless subwoofer kit for just one of the subs? Is there some sort of threshold in terms of distance or having to run the subwoofer cable through walls and under carpet before it would make sense to switch over to a wireless subwoofer kit? So there's delay. That's what you're worried about with a wireless subwoofer kit. Yeah, there's some sort of latency there that will affect how, when the subwoofer gets the signal. And it can change based on the subwoofer solution, the wireless solution that you're using. But for an AV receiver, it's not a problem to account for that just through your distance setting. It just makes the subwoofer
independent distance settings, because not every AV receiver does. But if you have independent distance settings, you can totally use that. Yep.
Yeah. So, does that mean that you have to worry, isn't a wireless solution inherently somehow bad or not going to work or whatever? It can cause problems, but those problems are overcome, or usually, depending on the AV receiver you have, can be overcome, because all it does really is make the subwoofer look to the AV receiver like it's much further away. That's all. So they just change the distance.
10 feet farther away than it actually is about what it looks like. If the subwoofers you're using have fully variable phase and you do not have independent distance settings in your AV receiver, if you have fully variable phase on your subwoofers, you can overcome it that way as well. So there's no problem using one wired and one wireless. I would say, what's the threshold? As soon as it's more convenient to use the wireless, I would go ahead and do so. And if you want recommendations, I can point you to Outlaws. I like their solution. I think it looks nice and I think it works well. If you're in a particularly interference-prone environment, then we know from many people having told us that SVS's tri-band sound path wireless subwoofer kit, it does cost more. It is more expensive, but people have been like, yeah, that thing worked where other wireless solutions did not, where there was too much interference and I was getting pops or clicks or drops out. That tri-band SVS has worked really well for people, so it might be worth the price. Also, if it really bothers you, there is the option to purchase an additional separate receiving unit, and it can take the same signal from the original transmitter. You don't have to have two transmitters and two receivers. You can have one transmitting unit and more than one receiving unit, and then all of your subwoofers could be wireless.
That's right. So Brandon's son uses a pair of Audio Engine A5 Plus speakers for his desktop setup. Those speakers do not have Bluetooth built in. Is there a dongle that would make it easy to add Bluetooth to them? There's so many now.
Yeah.
So my parents, when they moved into their new house, they're trying to set up my brother's room for him, and he's autistic, and he uses headphones a lot, because if not, then the TV gets ridiculously loud in there. So he uses headphones, and for years we've been getting these wireless headphone solutions that have like a transmitter that and then he wears the headphones that are wireless and then charges them on top of the transmitter or plugs them in or whatever the heck it is. I don't remember, but for years they've been doing that. So when they moved into the new house, all that stuff got flooded, so they needed new headphones and a new thing for them. I'm like, just get a dongle. Just get a dongle that has a left and right input or whatever it is from the TV, because that way you can
so that would be a Bluetooth transmitter.
Right.
He's looking for the opposite.
For him, it's a Bluetooth transmitter. But these receivers and all this other stuff, they make so many of them these days that it's one of those products that the Chinese companies gave up on making interesting names, and they just mashed the keyboard. And so you will find some, and most of them work fine.
Yeah,
most of them do.
It's all the same chips inside.
Yeah, there's nothing different except that they've printed different lettering on the outside and maybe changed the case a little bit. And almost all the reviews you see that are negative are people who bought the wrong product and don't understand why it doesn't work the way they expected it to, or they don't know how to set up Bluetooth.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the end of that.
So I mean, I can mention Audio Engine themselves has their own, but I think it's drastically overpriced at $190. I don't think you need to pay anywhere near that much. But if you're just like, I've got to have the brands match, then that option does exist. But yeah, like for $190, the speakers that you have, they only have analog inputs, so you'd be using the analog one. At least the speakers do have two sets. One of them is the regular red and white analog inputs, but then also has a 3.5 millimeter stereo input. So obviously you have something connected on the computer already, so you'd be using the other one. You might need a red and white to 3.5 millimeter adapter cable, but that is easy to come by. But the one I'm going to point to over just at Amazon.com, a company called Blue Dento, they've got one also called the B1, same model number, but this is only $40 $20 and will totally work fine. What I like about this one, look, there are even less expensive ones than this, but I don't think $40 is too bad at all. What I like about this one is it has every flavor of Bluetooth aptX, right? So if you're doing Bluetooth aptX HD, if you're doing low latency, this supports those things. And I think that's worth paying like $15 more for than the $25 ones, because I like having that low latency and HD capabilities, and I don't think $40 is breaking the bank. So we'll have the link to that.
Lastly, he asks, can we recommend a small, slim surge protector that would be easy to mount behind a wall-mounted TV? Like most surge protectors these days have, and they're slim by definition. They have to be a certain depth so that the plugs go in. But they have keyhole mounts so that you can mount them on the wall or whatever with
that.
just screws. But if you're looking for something specific, Rob's got a suggestion.
Yeah, Sanus. They have a great solution. They're OWSP42, just super memorable. But this just plugs straight into the wall outlet. Is only the thickness of the outlet. What I like here, it's got 4 places you can plug in, but they swivel. So if you want them to be facing sideways, if you want them to be at an angle for some reason, whatever you're plugging them into them requires, some clearance or whatever. All of the outlets swivel on it, and it has USB ports on it as well. So this will fit behind any wall-mounted TV. You can swivel the outlets, you can plug in USB, and it's $20. So you're absolutely fine as far as price and functionality, and Sanus is a name you can trust.
All right, so let's pop back up to Ilango real quick, because I want to talk about this Epson, this Optima projector real quick. So Rob mentioned it's IP6X rated, and I double-checked that is true. The 6X means that it is rated for dust ingress, which is the 6 part of it. But the X means that it's not at all rated for water ingress.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's very important that you understand that. So the 6 means that essentially it's got like a filter and the lamp is protected or whatever, the screen is, whatever. It's rated for dust ingress. Okay. So that's what the first number is. The X means that it is not rated at all for water. So that means that humidity can and will be a problem with this thing. Possibly. So just be aware of that.
No more so than the other ones, and having some dust resistance is not a bad thing outdoors.
Absolutely not. But I don't want you to look at that IP rating and think, oh, well, this thing can live outside forever. That's not going to be the case. I just wanted to, I had to double check because it's something that I've written in articles before and talked about in articles before, and it was like I can never remember which one goes first. It's the dust rating first, and then the water rating is afterwards. But I always think it should be the water rating first because that's the one that's always more important to me. But that's not the way it works. So the highest dust rating is 6. So that's it doesn't get any more dust resistant than 6. I mean, other than sandblasting the thing, it should be fine. But the highest water rating is 8. So it goes much higher on the water rating, and that means that you can throw it into the frickin' ocean and it's fine. But this is X means that it's none, 0. It's the same as 0, I guess.
Good clarification.
Infant Gary, when a streaming service, let's say Netflix as an example, gets their movie files from the studios, do they get a single version and then they create all their other versions themselves based off that one file from the studio? For example, would a studio send Netflix a 4K resolution, Dolby Vision plus Dolby Atmos master file, and then from that, Netflix processes it to create HDR10, SDR, lower resolution 5.1, 2 channel audio versions themselves. So the way that, in fact, I shared with Rob somebody talking about this stuff, and he was like, well, that was long-winded. And when Rob says you're long-winded, that means something.
Go back to the beginning of this podcast. It was all me making us run long.
It was all you. God, slowing us down. What was I doing? I was all over the place. But you think that the resolution is on the fly being changed, especially like as your bit rate changes, because audio doesn't really change, right? If you're getting Atmos, It doesn't like switch to 2.1 or 2.0.
There are situations where it can, if in weird extreme glitches, it'll drop down from Atmos all the way down to 5.1 or 2.0 because it's a completely different version. Speaking, every single one of those changes is a completely different version of the movie being streamed to you.
That's right. So when your resolution goes like, oh, you're at 720p, oh, you're at 1080, oh, you're at 4K, that's not it being upscaled or downscaled or whatever. It's a different version. They're just switching to different files in the same timestamp. and it's funny because you can kind of notice this. I don't know how your cars operate, but I have a fairly new car, and not by choice. And the Bluetooth in there works great, but every once in a while when I get like a notification, the notification will play and then the song will skip forward a little bit.
Okay.
Like it won't come, like I miss just a beat, like just one downstroke, and I miss on the song. And I think it's because it's switching between the different versions of the song sort of thing. So it's like a pause there, but you are seeing different versions of that same movie. So how does Netflix or all these places do it? We know that for Kaleidescape, they get their masters and they do their own thing to it, right? But I don't think that's the way it is for the rest of these.
I'm not 100% sure if they only get a single file from the studio. Like for sure, if you're talking, there's the 1080p version, standard dynamic range, 5.1 audio. Then there's the 720p, 540p. They go all the way down to however low they go. All of those Netflix created themselves. For sure, they made all of those different lower resolution versions. The studio was not sending them like a dozen different resolution files when they're all 1080p or lower standard dynamic range. Like absolutely, the studio was not doing that. I don't know if they send them a standard dynamic range and a high dynamic range version separately, though. That's a me. I honestly don't know. So as far as the large variation of resolutions, Netflix is definitely creating that themselves. But as far as HDR versus SDR, I'm not sure if there's two different ones from the studio or not.
Yeah, the reality is we have no way of knowing, and I would imagine that different studios react differently to these things.
I mean,
and either want to have control or don't want to have control. Or
there's a heck of a lot of movies on Netflix that are not available in 4K HDR. So in that instance, you can be pretty sure the movie sent them one file that was 1080p, standard dynamic range, and then all the lower resolutions Netflix definitely created themselves.
Yeah. So Gary was watching an MLB game on his LG G3 OLED, and he was using his calibrated daytime picture mode, which had been set to a gamma of 2.2. It's normally a satisfying image, but this particular game was looking too dark to him. He tried simply raising the OLED pixel brightness setting, but that didn't help to make shadow detail any easier to see. Just made it feel harsh to his eyes with brighter highlights. So he wound up changing his gamma to 1.9 just for the game, and that helped. The thing is, he checked how the same MLB game looked on his Panasonic OLED, as well as his Sony LCD TV, and even his Pioneer Kuro Plasma. Boy, talk about enjoying a game. Just enjoying the heck out of it. I have time to go look at it on 5 different TVs.
I mean, it is baseball.
All of them looked... Yeah, that's true. All of them looked fine to him without needing any change of the picture setting. So why did his G3 OLED specifically need its gamma adjusted? I mean, the lighting conditions in the room.
Lighting? Yeah, room lighting would be the number one culprit.
That's the first thing I would think of, but who am I? I'm just some dude on the internet.
Yeah, as far that would be a number one culprit, is that the room lighting was different in there. The only other thing was the source device the same for all of them? Because I mean, certainly the Pioneer Kuro is definitely getting an SDR signal. There's no way that it's taking an HDR signal. Was this a game that was being broadcast in HDR where that might have played a difference into this thing? But my guess is different room lighting.
Yes. Manuel. I don't know. I'm going to say whatever.
We don't know for sure.
Wrong.
I'm going to say Manuel.
We don't know for sure. Manuel. Saved up and bought an Epson 5050 UB projector back in 2019. He has enjoyed it, but unfortunately a few weeks ago, a couple of colored vertical lines showed up, and since then the more vertical lines have appeared. The lines are always there and always in the same spots. You removed the top cover of his projector and inspected the 3 ribbon cables that people online have said are the culprits for image problems. He unplugged and cleaned them all, but there was no improvement. You're a braver man than me, my man. He's pretty bummed about it. He had hoped this projector would last at least a few more years. What do we think he should do? Should he get it repaired, or should he not bother with that and just put the money towards buying a whole new display? He's looking at the prices of 98-inch flat panels and wondering if sticking with the projector is even worth it. But of course, getting a new projector could also be an option. What do we say? Contact Epson to start with. That's the first thing I would do. Yeah, I mean, I woke up one day and my Epson projector, half the screen was just shot.
And we have seen these vertical lines before. They're often green, but his are all different colors. So that is usually an outright hardware issue. That is not typically it's not like a setting or anything like that. It's not a software problem that does that. That is typically a panel problem. So yeah, I would definitely get in touch with Epson, because even though you're past the initial manufacturer's warranty period, Epson has one of the stronger customer service and warranty type of solutions as far as projectors and that go. And when it's a definitive hardware issue like this, they might be willing to help you out with a little bit better. So my guess is that having this repaired or / replaced, usually they just replace it with a refurbished unit when it's something like this, will cost less than buying any form of new display. So I would at least look into that for sure as the first thing to do here.
That's the first thing I would do. I would talk to Epson. And again, I mean, as somebody who moved away from a projector to a flat panel, of course, I went to a C2 OLED, which was quite a bit smaller than my projector, but I mean, my screen, but moved forward a little bit. I am still advocating for people to go to flat panels, and I will continue to do so until projectors either get a lot better or a lot cheaper.
Yeah, if you were in the 100 to 110 inch type of size range, then if you ultimately decide that you're going to get a new display, then yeah, I'd be like 98 inch TCL, bring it on.
Yeah. Kevin, last week, Tom from Prague asked us which OLED he should get to replace his plasma TV, and Kevin listened with great interest since he's almost in the exact same situation. Kevin has a Panasonic VT60 plasma that is finally starting to show its age, and he can't really go much larger in terms of size for this particular setup. He needs to stick with around a 55-inch size. Not to worry, he's got a dedicated home theater for when he wants a much larger image. But when it comes to replacing this plasma, Rob told Tom, not me, the other guy, to get a LG G5 unless it's too expensive. But Tom said that he can't go larger. If he can't go larger, he might as well get the best, and Kevin feels the same way. But also last week we talked about Panasonic's brand new Z95B OLED series. So any reason that wasn't the top recommendation? Is that even out yet?
That's the main reason. You guessed it. You can't actually buy it just yet. It's announced officially, but you can't buy it today.
In the past, Panasonic OLEDs have received glowing reviews, but they simply weren't available in North America. Now that they are, at least the Z95B series, so why not that instead of the G5? Any particular reason? I mean, if you can't buy it, you can't buy it. It might be the best in the whole universe for all we know, but it hasn't come out yet, and nobody's tested it, so...
Yep.
I mean, I don't know how we're supposed to recommend that.
So that and the... running Amazon Fire TV, I'm like, that is bad enough that it makes me shy away from it. Look, the picture quality difference, I am going to go ahead and guarantee, and I'm not even going to put an asterisk and say not a guarantee. I'm going to go ahead and guarantee that while I don't doubt that somebody might be able to measure minuscule differences between these, visually speaking, there's not going to be a tremendous visual difference between the Panasonic Z95B and the LG G5 OLED TVs. They are using the exact same panel technology, all coming from LG Display. They are going to be way, way closer to each other than image quality than they are difference. So, if you want to buy one today and you want an interface that is not god-awful, then I would go ahead and get an LG G5.
How do you really feel about it?
When Alexa pings you at 3 a.m. with an email to say, hey, I got an update, F right off, Alexa. All the way.
So in this theater, he's got a projection set up. The screen has a native aspect ratio of 16:9, but it's a Seymour AV screen with the magnetic masking panel, so you can add top and bottom masking to make it a 2.4 to 1 aspect ratio. He always goes to attach the masking for any scope aspect movies, but his wife prefers to watch with subtitles on, and a lot of time those subtitles extend down into the black bar area below the scope image. So he ends up having to leave off the bottom magnetic masks, and he isn't super happy about that. Can I introduce you to a flat panel display? His sources are an NVIDIA Shield and the Panasonic UB420 Ultra HD Blu-ray player. Is there a way to adjust the position of the subtitles using those sources? He's also considered getting a Kaleidescape. Can that reposition subtitles? Does he need to get an Mad VR or Lumagen to his setup? To add to his setup. DJ wants you to.
Sure.
Definitely.
I know.
It will solve the problem you're having. Definitively.
Under the correct circumstances. So this all depends on, so look, the majority of Blu-ray and Ultra HD Blu-rays that have subtitles, they have a separate subtitle track. Like the subtitles are their own file, and as long as that is the way the subtitles are encoded, then this is possible. This is a thing that is possible to do, is shift the position of the subtitles. But some movies, particularly when most of the movie is spoken in English, but then they have a few little things that are a foreign language or an alien language, especially, this happens. Sometimes those subtitles are not a separate file. They are burned right into the original image, and sometimes they burned it in so that very often it'll be a scope movie. It's got the black bars on the top and the bottom, but like half of the subtitles fall into that black bar. Like Avatar is shown that way sometimes, right? When they're speaking the Na'vi language, and those subtitles are not always a separate file, and they show up half into the black bars. So if that's the case, there's nothing out there that can change that. The ones that are burned into the original image, like John Wick, right? Those subtitles are burned into the image and they're stylized, and you cannot change that. And nothing out there can do that. But the majority do have this separate subtitle file. And thankfully, the Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player that you already have, the UB420, it can do the subtitle shift. I've got a YouTube video that is a tutorial on exactly how to do that. The trick here is you're never going to find that setting in just the player's regular settings menu. You have to be watching something with subtitles active to be able to access the setting. So while the movie is playing and you know that you have subtitles turned on, you press the option button on the Panasonic remote, and there are subtitle settings. It's headed right there, subtitle settings. And that lets you change the physical position up and down, and it also lets you change how bright the subtitles are, because sometimes subtitles show up and they're glaringly bright, especially in HDR.
Yeah.
And the Panasonic actually lets you pull that back down as long as the subtitles are a separate file. So for your discs, you've already got the solution. Kaleidescape on its own, the players can all do the subtitle shift, and they encode their own. So unless it's John Wick is like the example where, because it's stylized and they're animated, that one's burned in. But if it's...
There was those Russian movies too that were like about it's kind of like The Matrix. I can't remember the name of those movies, where the subtitles were, they would come onto the screen in weird places and they would dissolve off. So it was all baked in.
That's right.
And those, you're just like, you have no choice.
Whatever they did, but anything that's the regular subtitling, Kaleidescape will certainly do that. Neither of those solutions requires MadVR or a Lumagen. The MadVR or the Lumagen just does exactly the same thing as what the Kaleidescape or the Panasonic Ultra HD Blu-ray player does for players that don't have that setting already built into them, but you don't need to do that to do the subtitle shift. The NVIDIA Shield is a different thing. There's not like some system level setting that you can do for this. It's going to be on an app by app basis. Most of the streaming apps do not let you do a physical positioning. They'll let you change the style. Most of the streaming apps will, in the settings, let you change the style of the subtitles. You can make them bigger or smaller. You can make them, black on a white background or white on a black background, that type of thing, but not usually the positioning. That's not typically an option. The one that is an exception, though, is Plex. Not natively in the Plex's own app, but there are all kinds of plugins that you can just search for and download to add to Plex that will let you move the subtitles in the Plex app. So if that's predominantly what you're using your NVIDIA Shield for, is as a Plex player, then there are solutions for that.
Okay, we're going to do one more, then we got to be done.
Okay, so can we actually skip down and make it raise, because that's very germane to everything we've been talking about here today.
Ray appreciated our advice on how to swap his Onkyo receiver amplifier for the AccuPhase integrated amp that he bought to replace it. He has decided to get the Kaleidescape Strato V player. Are you sure?
Maybe it's going to be the Strato E now, because he did send this before that was announced.
Yeah. So he already owns a collection of Ultra HDs and regular Blu-rays. He'd like to have everything in a single interface. So does that mean he'll need to repurchase all of his discs in Kaleidescape's online store, or is there some way to add all of the discs he already owns to his Kaleidescape interface? There is. I thought we discussed that last week, that you can tell Kaleidescape that you own a movie, somehow prove it to them, and then they will put it into your library. That's right.
True? That is their disc-to-digital service. It is part of it. Now, the regular way that this works is they have a list right now. It's just 3 different models of external Blu-ray drives. So like there's like a PC, a USB PC Blu-ray drive. They have 3 that they have like fully tested, and they're like, these ones definitely work. It does not mean that there aren't other USB Blu-ray drives that like will not function. It's just that those are the 3 that they are currently available, and they know for 100% sure work with their Strato players. So you plug that into one of the USB ports on the back of your Strato, you put your Blu-ray or DVD into that drive. It's not reading the whole movie, it's just spinning it up, reading for about 10 to 15 seconds, and then that actually gets authorized and added to your Kaleidescape account. So anytime after that, you could look up that same movie title in Kaleidescape Store, and it'll say, oh, you already spun up the disc in that drive. We have that on record, and you can do the disc-to-digital, which does cost some money, but it is less than the full purchase price of if you hadn't done that disc-to-digital thing. And they vary between about $5 and $20. Totally depends on the movie and the studio and the timing and all that sort of stuff. But it is definitely a discount over buying it all brand new. Now, gigantic caveat to this is they are not supporting this with 4K Ultra HD Blu-rays. They are relying on, when you purchase a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray, up until somewhat recently, those almost always came with the Blu-ray version as well, right? Like when you were buying the hard copy, you'd get the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray and the regular Blu-ray. So they're like, okay, you just put the regular Blu-ray from that package into the drive. We'll authorize that. You can do the disc-to-digital to the 4K Kaleidescape version. No problem there. Doesn't cost, different or extra to do that. But they're not doing the authorization on the 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray discs themselves. And we're starting to get 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray releases now that don't have the Blu-ray in the package. So there is that caveat to it. Also, they're like, if you own the disc, but it fails in the drive to authorize for some reason, they do have a manual version where you can like take a photo of the UPC code and send it into them, and they'll get it authorized and add it to your account. That takes more time than the automated process through the drive, of course, but there is a recourse if for some reason your disc doesn't read or something like that. So it's not going to be a guarantee for every single disc that you own. Not every movie that has ever been released on Blu-ray and DVD is in the Kaleidescape store. They don't have everything. So there's going to be, especially if you have a huge DVD collection, a bunch of those are probably not going to be in the Kaleidescape store. But it's worth a check. You can get one of those authorized drives. We'll have the link directly to Kaleidescape's own FAQ about it. And it's not going to be free. You don't get them for free, but it is less expensive than rebuying all the movies at full purchase price.
All right, so who do we have left?
We have on our list Josh and Tony. You fellas will be first up next week.
All right, we want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Brandon for going to avrant.com, clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 132 patrons over at patreon.com.
That is right, Brandon. Thank you very much for that PayPal donation. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is where you can go to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation if you want to. So a big thank you to our 132 patrons over there.
I also want to thank Infinite Gary and Greg for sending us some movie codes to test out for them.
That is right. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Greg.
And lastly, we got notes of gratitude from Ilango, Mike, Manuel, Sebastian, Kevin, Greg, and Ray. Thank you for thanking us.
Yeah, I'll say the names one more time. We got Ilango, Mike, Manuel, Sebastian, Kevin, Greg, and Ray. Thank you all very much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. We really appreciate them. And a big, big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.